Hey everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven and this is the Storytime channel. Today we have some I Don't Work Here Lady stories, and our first story of the day is by Cornelius the One. Sorry lady, I work here to fix your crap, but I'm not an employee. A little explanation. I am a security expert. My main profile is facility security and fire prevention. On demand, I give information about work safety and environmental hazards. Enterprises hire me to find the risks they face. It means that at the first contact, I have a first glance of my future client's site. We have a talk about what they need, then I tell how many on-site days that will cost them. The task includes interviews, examination of regulations, and, of course, assessment of the complex. It's not a job that can be done 100% in a suit and tie. There are dirty places where I have to climb, and although I use a drone for high places, sometimes I have to climb industrial ladders, etc. For such occasions, I use a military khaki coveralls with caterpillar boots, work helmets, and safety ropes if necessary. Will be important later. After the on-site days, I will prepare my report in the form requested. Mostly this means electronic and/or printed documents, but it's not uncommon for management to ask for a presentation in addition to the documents where questions can be asked. This is especially true when the company that commissioned me already had problems. This is also important later. On to the story. So I was hired by the owner of a company of rising activity. Big enough site, industrial buildings, heavy machinery, spectacular office building. The owner is a smart guy, a pleasant conversationalist, but the kind with whom you count your fingers after a handshake. We agreed on what he wanted to investigate, how many days it was for him, and what I needed to access, all for how much. The guy knew he wasn't throwing away the money he was paying me. Annoying thefts took place and he did other things, but I refrained from talking about them because that would have oriented my research. At companies this size, in many cases, the security and the fire prevention is regarded as a kind of inner service, provided by the facility management department. This was the case at this company too. When I begin a job like this, I always begin with the interviews of the security personnel. It's a good source of intel and they will always know me from day one, so no confusion on the following days. I went on with them, checked the camera system, burglar alarm, access control, fire alarm, etc. By the time I get to the corporate policies, I have already found serious shortcomings, but the dirty part only followed. It was scheduled for the beginning of the second day to interview with the head of the facility management department, but when I showed up at her office at the allotted time, I only found her very embarrassed assistant there. The young lady said Mrs. Name had to leave and was only expected in the afternoon, but she was willing to help. I didn't tell her, it took me enough effort to overcome her initial embarrassment, but the conditions I could examine with her help were hair-raising. Third day was the day when I put my workwear, helmet, camera, tablet, and measuring instruments. The places I had to reach had access from the inside parking lot. Some of the parkings were marked for top management who had company cars. The top management, 4 people, parked large but not ostentatious cars in the dedicated parking lots, alongside a few more modest company cars for lower-ranking managers. I was ready to climb a 20 meters, around 65 feet, high industrial ladder, which takes 2 hands, so I turned the camera on. I needed a few seconds to take my gloves when I heard that. I had that on cam. "Hey you!" I looked in the direction of the voice. It was a woman, very manager-like, very bossy, and the arrogance shone from her. She was some 5'6", fit in plastic with a modeled expensive hairstyle. Apart from her, I was the only one in the parking lot, so it could not be a mistake to whom the kind words were addressed. Before I could speak, she continued in a commanding voice. "Grab my box and put it in my car. Come on, move." Usually, I am a polite, not to say chivalrous guy, but only with humans. She did not act like one by my standards, so I told her, "No, I'm busy, do it yourself." And I began to climb the ladder. After a moment of dead silence, I hear her shout, "How dare you? Who is your boss? I will get you fired." I did not care the ranting, but I was already more than 7 feet high on the ladder when I felt her grab my ankle. "Come back down at once, I am speaking to you," she shouted. "Listen," I told her, "I don't know you, but I presume you think that I am an employee here. I am not. Those people working in the industrial buildings, they wear blue, janitors wear red, guards wear black. Probably they endure when you speak to them in such a tone. I do not. I'm climbing this ladder now. If you let go of my ankle, I will climb alone. If you don't let go, you will come with me." She was so surprised that she let go of my ankle. I climbed the ladder, but I still heard her huff and puff. She found someone else to load her car, then she went away. I noted the number of her parking. Sometimes later, I edited my report. The owner scheduled a meeting with top management, and Mrs. Name, who, as head of facility management department, was responsible for the activities I had to investigate. At the time of the meeting, I arrived some 5 minutes early, but the 4 big bosses were already there. We were just waiting for Mrs. Name while we talked about nothing. In a few words, it was obvious that all 4 had read my report and had questions. Didn't it escape my attention that as a kind of in-house joke, bets were made on how much Mrs. Name would be late. She arrived 10 minutes late, the owner won the bet. When the owner presented me, first she turned red, then white. She was the rude lady of the parking lot. When I began my presentation, she was aggressive and arrogant, but I left no place of doubt. So when I finished, she was completely devastated. In short, the company risked a fine of approximately $60,000 due to a series of irregularities and thefts, and material damage were caused by poorly written policies and faulty contracts. This could have all been written at Mrs. Name's expense, but the management felt they could have paid more attention. As always, my report included detailed suggestions for solutions. So Mrs. Name left, not with the promise of dismissal, but with as much to do as she had never experienced before. Even there and then, they asked me for a check back 3 months later. The check back was only 1 day, but I was with Mrs. Name for almost 7 hours that day, who was looking at my eyes no more than 5 times in total from that time. So, if you were this lady's boss, would you have fired her 10 times over by now? Let me know in the comments down below, because I think I would be. Our next story is by Cat Cows. Once a bookseller, always a bookseller. Except to entitled Buttholes. This story is a few years old, but still a solid block of WTF in brain. A little long. Characters: Karen, empty toolbars. Bob, Karen's poor schmuck of a husband, doesn't do much at all. Blackbeard, manager. He was there when I worked there and is known for being a no-crap-taking guy. Me. Backstory: I was a bookseller for almost a decade, but left for a high-paying Monday to Friday 9 to 5. I had loved my job. After I left, I still frequented the bookstores in the chain a lot, browsing shelves, checking out new titles, and catching up with old coworkers. The story: I'm in my old store. It's in an area that has access to a number of posh neighborhoods. It's been maybe 3 or 4 years since I left. The staff has gone through its 6th turnover, and only a small handful of employees that I worked with are still there. I'm in jeans, my university sweatshirt, had my purse over my shoulder, and my cell phone out with earbuds in with bands like Five Finger Death Punch, D Antwoord, and In This Moment lined up in for my ears. Very clearly a customer. There is no uniform here, just business casual clothes with a lanyard that holds a name tag. I'm perusing through the sci-fi/fantasy section. I have 2 books selected already, and I'm looking for a few more. My limit is 5 books or no more than $60. Limits. One of the employees, one that I don't know, comes up to ask if I need any help. I say that I do and tell him that I used to work there and am looking for a couple more books. I tell him what type of books I like, and he recommends a few good titles. We end up chatting more about the genre in general, about the classic authors, etc. I thank him and he goes on his way, and I'm 2 books richer. I move on to the mystery section, and I picked up an empty basket to put my books in when I feel it. The finger. That hard few pokes executed by a bony digit tipped with a long acrylic nail. Then the words. "Excuse me." And there she is, that dark root blonde bobbed hair, the 3/4 yoga pants, matching workout top, pristine white sneakers, wristlet purse, and the latest iPhone. Her husband is a good-looking, tired Ken style of a man, hands in his pockets. Me taking out an earbud. What? That's not how you greet a customer. So rude. Look who's talking. What did you say to me? What do you want? And I don't work here, by the way. You do? I heard you chatting with that other employee over there. I need this book. She presented her iPhone that indeed had a picture of a book. I don't work here, lady. Back the heck up. What did you say to me? How dare you? You're required to help me. I'm a paying customer. I'm not required to do anything. I turned my back on her and moved further down the aisle, hoping she'd take the hint. Nopes. Instead, she grabs the back of my hoodie and yanks me back. What the freak is your problem, lady? I don't work here. I'm in jeans and sweatshirt. I have my purse. I was listening to music for freak's sake. I know you work here. I've seen you here before working. I used to work here years ago, but I don't anymore, so back up. You're still obligated to help me. It's part of your code. Say what? Your code. You have to help me, or I'll speak to your manager and get you banned and fined. I'm staring now at this bleach blonde lunatic, then at her husband with a, is she serious with this crap? Look, he can't even look at me. Me thinking about Reddit here. Fine, do it. I'll get a manager. Let's see who gets in trouble. I flag down an employee and ask for a manager. When they ask why, I tell them we just need a manager. The employee shrugs, gets on their portable store phone, and calls for a manager who comes over. We'll call him Blackbeard. Blackbeard says, "Hi, what seems to be the problem?" Karen, of course, starts her spewing, yammering on about how I insulted her, called her names, and refused to assist her. She plays no tears, just rage. Ma'am, please, there is no need for that kind of language or that level of volume. He turned to me. Miss, can you tell me what happened? I gave him my version, trying to hide my smirk. Blackbeard staring at Karen now like she's an idiot. Ma'am, she doesn't work here. I can help you find your book, but you can't go around harassing people, be they employee or customer, even if they used to work here. Karen said some other foul things. Ma'am, you have 3 choices. 1. Pipe down and I'll help you out. 2. Keep going and I'll have you removed and banned. Or 3. Just leave. Your choice. Karen and Blackbeard had a staring match that lasted a good 15 seconds. Karen left with a scowl, and Blackbeard and I shared a small high five. I finished up my shopping, Blackbeard letting me use his employee discount. I went to a restaurant next, ate and read, and as I enjoyed a cheesecake dessert, I wondered what kind of code Karen was talking about and where the heck she had heard it. The end. Yeah, you know, the blood pact that every former bookstore employee takes, where no matter what bookstore you're at, even if you don't work there anymore, you have to help people out. That Karen must just have like some kind of overactive imagination or something. And our final story of the day is by Rando Boomer. I don't call him his name either. The words, "I don't work here," aren't present in the story, but since it is part of the misunderstanding that follows, I figure it's appropriate. Last night, my daughter came home from her job. She works retail in a nearby shopping plaza, with the sad news that their neighboring store, which specializes in kitchenware, is having a going out of business sale. It was tragic news in our home, as my wife and daughter both share a passion for baking and cooking and shop there often. So much so that the owner, my wife, and our daughter are on a first-name basis. Ever since my daughter was little, she was mommy's helper in the kitchen. It's been a running gag in our house the past few years that we give her a 5-pound bag of flour among her Christmas presents. Now 17, she enjoys flying solo in the kitchen, and her pierogies are food not to be eaten, but experienced. My wife is feeling under the weather, so she gave me a list of things to look at, plus a surprise item, more later. I agreed to meet my daughter at the store when she finished work. My daughter had gotten there a little early and I was a little late leaving the house, so she had already been in the store by the time I arrived. That's when the fun begins. I arrive at the store and find sweetheart daughter chatting with nice store owner, commiserating over the store closing. Store owner was feeling sad and appreciated daughter's sympathy, so I decided to shop for a bit and let them finish their conversation. I had barely made it 20 feet before I was overwhelmed by some of the choices. Nearby stood a middle-aged woman who, even with a mask, you could tell wore a perpetual scowl that curdled milk in a 5-mile radius. So I turned towards sweetheart daughter and said, "Hey sweetheart, I have a question." Obnoxious lady says, "Sweetheart, that's not how you address a woman." At this point, sweetheart daughter hears the kerfuffle and sprints over, knowing that the gene that allows one to suffer fools gladly is only present in my wife's DNA. Nice store owner wasn't with her, apparently having just begun ringing someone up. I say, "But she's..." Obnoxious lady talking over me, raising her voice, "You sexist, she has a name." Yes, I know. I was going to point out I gave her that name, after my grandmother, but she continued raising her voice. "You address her politely as," emphatically, "Miss, or use her name." Sweetheart daughter now arriving, putting her hands up. "Look, it's okay." Obnoxious lady turning to sweetheart daughter. "No, it's not okay. You should not have to put up." Sweetheart daughter raising her voice. "It's okay. I don't call him by his name either. I call him Dad." It's obvious that the embarrassment is now further exacerbating obnoxious lady's rage, and were I not suffering fools gladly challenged, I'd have just let things go. But as I mentioned, I lack that gene. I say, this is the part where a reasonable person apologizes. Obnoxious lady just glares at me, determined not to give me the satisfaction before turning and walking away. Yeah, I knew our little exchange was one reasonable person short. Come on, sweetheart. Let's finish Mom's shopping list. We worked through the rest of the list, filling our basket and ferrying up the larger items to the counter. There are no shopping carts. Thankfully, obnoxious lady had gone by the time store owner began ringing us up. Meet a store owner. Oh, I forgot one thing. This is where the aforementioned surprise comes in. I hurriedly returned with the deluxe KitchenAid stand mixer that elicited a puzzled look from my daughter, as we already have one. Turning to my daughter, "This one's for you. Mom and I figure that someday when you have your own place, you'll have your first appliance." Cue misty eyes from my daughter. Store owner gave us an extra $50 off, which was yet another nice surprise. What a terribly, obnoxious moment, followed up by an absolutely beautiful and adorable moment. It's kind of great and kind of awful at the same time that such a great experience was kind of stuck to such a nasty one. But the good far outweighs the bad. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you have a favorite story of the day, let me know which story and why in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like, and if you haven't, subscribe and turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. No matter what you do, whether it's just viewing the video, liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, I appreciate the heck out of it. Every little thing that you do helps the channel grow that much more, and I can't thank you enough for it. So until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll be right here next time on the Storytime channel.